All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Leonie Kirschner, and I'm from United Beekeepers of Namibia. So this evening's agenda is to look at why bees matter. We're going to dive into the hive. We're going to look at basic equipment, beekeeping equipment, if you want to get started. And we're going to talk a little bit about your startup costs and year one. Just before we dive into this, I just want to give you a brief background of myself and my husband. We started 14 years ago with a very small, humble patio garden. So you can see that there on the screen. Those two boxes put together was about 1 square meters. I knew nothing about farming. I knew nothing about gardening, but I used to refer to these two boxes as my farm. So out of that later came a business called Everwell City Farms. But through consistently trying, failing, learning, these small beginnings started growing. I think if you do something consistently right, you will eventually achieve a form of success. So that small patio garden became a front yard garden, which then later turned into school gardens. So this was a project here in Cape Town, actually, at a high school. I worked with high school students creating this garden. You can see Craig, my husband, there in the background, busy marking beds. And then school gardens turned into more home gardens. So this is a site in Windhoek. You can see it looked like a dump site. And on the right-hand side, taken different stages of that project, but we essentially converted that into our own home garden. But you can see what it looked like. And home gardens turned into another city garden. So this is in Trift Street near the Auspanplatz Circle, if you're familiar with Windhoek. We created this garden. Again, on the left-hand side, you can see it was a classic, typical Namibian front yard, backyard, side yard. It's sand and gravel, and that's it. But we took the opportunity and created another garden from that. And then we started with custom food projects. So this is a property called Elam Training Center. It's 4 kilometers south of Okahanya. This is our current project that we're busy with. And this is what it looked like just before the winter frost came, but there you can see the transformation. So this picture, just to give you an advantage point here, was taken from exactly the opposite direction. So if I go one back, you'll see the vehicles there in the background. And if you now pretend you are standing at the vehicles looking back this way, then this is what you see. So I think that's quite a transformation. We also have free-range chickens. We're into beekeeping, which we're going to be talking about this evening. You can see a picture there of my husband, Craig, and daughter, Grace. And we also have meat rabbits. So in summary, I am a member of the Namibia Organic Association. Although the current project we're busy with in the garden we have there is not certified organic, we are certainly trying our best to farm organically and to stay away from pesticides, fungicides, any synthetic input. I'm also a member of the United Beekeepers of Namibia. I serve on the executive committee there. And Everwell City Farms is all about balanced ecosystems. So as you can see, although some of our gardens have that typical shade net structure at the top, what's not clear from these pictures is actually that the side netting we converted, in fact, purposefully chose bird netting because we wanted to allow pollinators into our garden. And we're going to talk this evening then about pollinators and specifically honeybees. We're going to zoom into that. But question, why does it matter? Or why do these teeny tiny insects matter? So I just want to bring some context and perspective to this conversation, because I think sometimes when we talk about bees, our minds automatically go to the honeybee. But there are over 25,000 bee species in the world, of which about 3,000 are found in Africa. Most bees are actually solitary bees. That means they don't live together. They live in solitude by themselves. So the honeybee, I think, is a very, very small subspecies of the much bigger population of bee species in the world. And it's important that we keep that in mind. When we talk about pollinators, we are not just referring to honeybees. Okay, so that's an important thing, because when you're in your garden and you're not using poisons, if you sit still long enough, you'll notice many different insects, not just honeybees, and you'll start noticing different types of bees even, so that we haven't noticed before because we just weren't looking for them. Our minds will often see the thing that we are looking for, and we will miss other things. So if you sit still long enough, you'll actually start spotting these solitary bees as well. Now, why pollinators are important is, if we look at a plate of food, then actually more than just over a third of the food on that plate comes from crops pollinated by bees. So if there are no bees, no pollinators, we will have a case of malnutrition. Because contrary to popular belief in Namibia, you cannot live on meat and starch alone. Unfortunately, the carnivores in the conversation might disagree, but seriously, I think we are more dependent on the vitamins, minerals, and the nutritional value of vegetable crops than what we realize. And I think if we start studying certain diseases, I think scientists have over and over proven that those diseases can be linked back to gut health, which again is affected by what we eat. All right, so no bees. No bees means malnutrition. And then, of course, to add to that, and that's not part of the statistic on the screen, but we are in cattle country here in Namibia. And if you factor in the fact that bees also play a role, or pollinators also play a part in the pollination of some grass species, not all of them, and most of them are wind pollinated, but they do play a role in that too. So if we remove pollinators out of the equation, we will certainly see a decrease in the rangeland condition. If we consider the effect on crop farmers specifically, studies have shown, depending on the type of crop, that if you are farming in a way where pollinators are welcome, you can increase your yield between 20 up to 60%, depending on the crop that you're farming with. Now, that is huge, considering that you can increase yield, in other words, increase your income potential without increasing your expenses in planting more or acquiring more land. So on the same portion of land with the same input costs, you can up your production, which increases your yield and your income in the end of the day. And then across the world, 87% of flowering plants, shrubs, trees are pollinated by bees. So bees ensure biodiversity. I wish my front garden looked like this picture on the screen. I don't think this picture was taken in Namibia, but we can dream. And we're zooming in on honeybees this evening because we get the value-added products from honeybees. So apart from honey, there's beeswax, propolis, pollen, bee venom, and royal jelly. I thought to share this at the end, but decided to start with this, or put it early in the presentation, just to show you how beekeeping can change the livelihoods of people, especially marginalized communities. So a while ago, well, it's been an ongoing project, but NNF, Namibia Nature Foundation, has a project in the Kongola Zambezi region. And they worked with a group of people from two different conservancies up there, the Mayuni and the Kwandu conservancies. And they trained these people to become beekeepers. They took them through basic beekeeping training. They took them through the harvesting of honey process. They helped them harvest their honey, and then ended up with this product that you see called makwa honey. So it's a combination of the names of the two conservancy areas. And, you know, the spin-off to this is the moment you start looking at bees and their behavior and what is necessary to farm with honeybees, you cannot do that successfully if you are not also looking at the conservation of freshwater resources and the forests and other natural ecosystems. If we take any one of those components out of the equation, we can't be beekeepers. And so today our challenge as beekeepers, if you're a beekeeper or if you want to become a beekeeper, is that we cannot do that in isolation. Because a honeybee is still a wild insect, I cannot tame it like I tame my dog or my cat. I cannot put a fence around it and say to the bee, you may not go across to the neighbor where they are spraying poisons. You have to stay here on my farm where I farm organically. We can't do that with our bees. And so it becomes important, if we want to be really successful at beekeeping, that we need to start looking at the environment around us as well. So looking after bees means I automatically have to look after these other resources as well, and vice versa. If I'm already looking after my freshwater resources, if I'm already protecting my forests and my natural ecosystems, then I'm automatically also protecting the bee populations in my area. So this is